right, so welcome to the Tharp Garden. So you all get to experiment with these mixed greens in my home garden. And if you can see up on the hill there, Mr. Tharp has actually started setting up our vegetable garden for this season. So it's still under construction a little bit, but it is still a good time and an easy way for us to plant our greens in one of these brand new beds. So follow me as we go up to the garden. All right, so I have several raised beds here, and I wanted raised beds because it's just like our school. It's a little easier to access, and also if you notice, this is kind of a wet area for us, so things would not grow very well on our ground floor here on this hilltop garden. But things will work a little better, they'll grow better if I put it in a raised bed with a mixed soil of my choice. So I was recently talking to someone at the hardware store a few weeks ago about the right kind of soil for my raised beds, and they suggested a combination of garden soil, which I'm using this just natural organic all-purpose garden soil. It was inexpensive, what can I say? And some topsoil, and I'm going to mix that together to create a nice balance of regular dirt and some high nutrient garden dirt. And I also have a little bit of sand. Sand will help with some drainage. I'll mix that in with the mix too. It kind of creates a gritty like soil, and this is the first time I'm doing this, mixing my soil. You could definitely do your raised garden with just garden soil, but it might be too rich in nutrients. So I'm trying to create a good balance of dirt, soil, and a little bit of drainage sand. So I'm gonna start mixing this up. I'm gonna show you a couple of steps, and then we'll take a quick break so that you can see me putting these greens in. All right, so I have this garden mesh in here, which just helps to keep the soil in this raised bed. So if you're wondering what that is, it's just the whole thing. Some people use plastic. I wanted to use this garden mesh so that water could also have some good drainage inside. So this was the first bag of garden soil. Now I'm adding in the topsoil, which you can see looks a lot different. They look a lot different from each other. You can kind of see the textures. And you know what? If you have garden gloves, use them. If not, get dirty. Why not? All right, and then as I go along, I'm just going to break up this dirt. I'm going to mix it really good. You see that there are big clumps in here. I don't want big clumps. I want it to be as fine as I can get it. I'm going to also mix some sand as I go. Now, I've never mixed with sand before, but I'm giving it a try. You never know if something works unless you try it. Sometimes it'll really surprise you when you try something new, how good the outcome is. So I don't want you to be afraid to try this at home. Even if it doesn't work the first time, don't give up. Okay, so I have filled up my 4-foot by 2-foot bed with 3 bags of topsoil, about 3 bags of garden soil, and maybe a gallon of sand. Again, that's something new for me to try, so I don't know exactly how much to put in my mix, but that's what I'm going with for now. The next thing I'm going to add is compost. And this is a compost mix that is actually from my compost tumbler, and it's a lot of just broken down organic food matter. So no fats, no citrus, no dairy, just like we've done at school on Mondays. And I'm breaking it down in my hands because I'm going to make a nice layer of compost at the top to put onto my leafy green bed. There's also a little bit of leftover black cow manure compost that I had left over in my garage that I mixed in. You can maybe see if Mr. Tharp comes to get a close-up. You might even be able to see some some eggshells in here, just from eggs that have broken down over time. But this is what happens. All in compost, all the food breaks down and it creates this really nutrient-rich soil. Again, I always compare it to taking your vitamins, right? It's good for vegetables and new plants to have a nice, rich compost to grow in. All right, so I have laid down about an inch thick of homemade compost, along with a little bit of black cow compost that I mixed in there that I had left over. This was all from last spring. Took a long time to decompose in the tumbler, about 8 weeks. I saved it, and now I'm using it for this planting season. In here, these were all of the, this was the spinach and the butter crunch lettuce that second grade planted that we were able to salvage from the plant lamps that were on the shelf in the school hallway. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant the spinach and the butter crunch lettuce that we did together at school into this garden. This is a burpee tray, B-U-R-P-E-E, burpee. They make these nifty little plant trays, and you can fill water at the bottom and fill them up with soil with seed. And I had transplanted your crops into here just to give them a little more room to grow. So what I can do is that this is flexible, and I'm just going to pop these little seeds out, and we have this perfect little soil piece here, and you can see the roots are coming out right in the middle. I'm just going to put that whole thing right here in the ground, in the raised bed. So I'm gently going to push these seeds up, these little plants. I want to be careful. They were just watered yesterday, so they may be falling apart, but the roots are still intact. And I'm planting these about a hand's width apart. So have a parent help you if you want to do this at home. I just want to give them enough space in between because these leafy greens are going to grow. They're going to grow pretty wide. So notice how I'm not digging too deep into the soil. All right, so we have our 3 rows of spinach here, and now I'm going to add the butter crunch lettuce. So this other lettuce, you can see it looks a lot different. It grows very differently. Junior kindergarten started little gem lettuce, as well as I did at home. So now I'm going to use this last section for the little gem lettuce, which is kind of like crunchy romaine lettuce. And I have it in this nifty newspaper pot, and if you look closely, see the roots coming out? It's telling us that it's definitely ready to go into the ground now. The newspaper of this plant cup is going to break apart and create its own compost around these seed roots. What's also nice about using newspaper is that they're really easy to make. And some of our younger classes got to make these little pots, these little flower pots, which I can show a video on that. And they're super useful to start your seeds in, and you don't even have to take them out of the container. You just put them directly into the ground or into the soil. Make sure when you're packing your seeds into the soil, apply a little pressure around them. You just want to make sure that soil is nice and compact around the roots so those roots can start to spread fairly easily. All right, we have all of our greens in the bed. Last thing we need to do in the bed is water everything. Now, it might rain this week, so just a good rule of thumb, water every other day. If it rains, don't water the next day. You don't want to drown your crops. You just want to make sure they have exactly what they need when they need it. Also, another good rule of thumb is if the soil is dry, then it's time to water your plants. If the soil is fairly moist and wet, don't water it. You don't want to overdo it. Wait till the soil gets dry and then water your plants. Last thing that you need to know is always clean up your mess. I just picked up all the plastic bags and made sure I threw them away in the right receptacle. And also, wash your hands. If you're like me and you don't mind getting dirty, make sure you scrub, clean under those nails really good before you go on to your next activity. But until then, go outside, do things as our school motto says. If you have any questions or are interested in getting some seeds, email me at school at etharp@cpcstl.org, and we will try to find a way for you to get some seeds so that you could start your own vegetable garden at home. See ya.